Hello and welcome to this Tuesday edition of the World Report. I'm Arjun, Samar, Mahendran. Let's take a look at what's making headlines around the world. Azerbaijan President Ilham Aliyev has said that India is acting out against his country in international organizations such as the SCO because he says of our close ties with Pakistan. Now, importantly, this statement comes just after the conclusion of the SCO summit where pariah Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was in fact sidelined, and this only adds more embarrassment to the global isolation that Pakistan and its allies have been facing. For more on this, my colleague Mohammad Ghazali joins me. Ghazali, a clear snub there for Shehbaz Sharif, as we saw, multiple moments. He virtually trying to rush to greet President Putin, and he, watching at Prime Minister Modi and President Xi walk on. So Pakistan was totally snubbed there. Now, is this just an attempt to kind of gather some international eyeballs on Pakistan and its partners?
See, it's snub for both, not just for Pakistan, but for Azerbaijan as well. It was invited as an observer state for the SCO summit, and the president himself shared with Pakistan's Prime Minister, Mr. Sharif, on the sidelines of the SCO summit, that how India has been blocking its membership or its onboarding onto the SCO membership, citing the reason that how Azerbaijan was assisting Pakistan during Operation Sindoor. And Prime Minister very categorically in his opening remarks during the SCO summit has clearly pointed out that any state which is backing terror should be condemned by one and all. Territorial integrity is something which is supreme and should be the priority of all the member states. And perhaps that is why it's a perfect lesson for all the states, not just Azerbaijan, but anyone who was assisting Pakistan during Operation Sindoor, for shielding them and not holding them responsible for the Pahalgam terror attack.
We shift our focus eastwards, where Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has in fact said that a multipolar world is being formed, which Western countries are trying to prevent. His comments came on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization gathering that concluded recently in China's port city of Tianjin. Lavrov said that the main result of the summit is the determination of the member countries to stay competitive and quote-unquote focus on defending legitimate interests. Listen in.
So this SKO summit is crucial for world.
Формируется многополярный мир. Этому пытаются помешать западные страны, пытаются сохранить свое доминирование, прибегая уже не к переговорам, не к методам честной конкуренции, а к прямому шантажу, давлению, санкциям, и колоссальное злоупотребление, конечно, ролью доллара в мировых делах, тарифные войны, которые Соединенные Штаты навязывают всем остальным.
There you have the Russian Foreign Minister sending a clear-cut message. In fact, we are also now joined by Maxim Kuznetsov from Moscow. He's the chairman of the Russia-Asia Business Council. Thank you so much, Mr. Kuznetsov, for taking out the time and joining us on this very special broadcast. Now, my question to you, sir. Now, India, China, Russia, Troika, as it's called, and we got to see it once again in the very face of Trump's constant tariff threats. Now, how important is this SCO summit? Has this SCO summit been? And more importantly, the very visual of Modi with Xi and Putin. Now, what message does it send all the way westwards to Washington?
So this SKO summit is crucial for world political agenda. It demonstrates that both three greatest Eurasian superpower, India, China, and Russia, demonstrates unity against United States and demonstrates unity against U.S. disrespectful attitude to new Eurasian countries, to new Eurasian superpowers in the field of tariffs and sanctions. US demonstrates double standards in different fields, and Russia and Soviet Union faced with it earlier. China faced it after it, and now India faced with US double standards too, and all three countries stands together against this neo-imperialism policy of United States, and Russia and India and China all demonstrates unity and cooperation against this kind of new neo-imperialism demonstrated by United States.
Now we switch gears and shift our focus westwards to Washington, where White House trade advisor Peter Navarro has once again, viewers, escalated his criticism of India. Now this time he's calling Prime Minister Narendra Modi's engagement with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping a strategic mistake. He said, and I'm quoting here, "It's a shame to see Modi getting in bed with Xi Jinping and Putin." He added, "We, as in the US, hope he comes around and seeing that he needs with us and not Russia." Now, Navarro's comments also reflected frustration with India's geopolitical balancing act. He said India has been in a cold war and sometimes a hot war with China for decades. The White House trade advisor asserted, and I quote here, "It doesn't make any sense." Listen in.
Europe to ask for more money from our taxpayers to pay for that. That's crazy. So the road to peace in many ways runs at least partly through New Delhi. It's time for Modi to step up. I have great respect for Modi. I love the Indian people. It was a shame to see Modi getting in bed as the leader of the biggest democracy in the world with the two biggest authoritarian dictators in the world, in Putin and Xi Jinping. So we hope that the Indian leader comes around to seeing that he needs to be with us and Europe and Ukraine and not with Russia on this, and he needs to stop buying the oil.
Shift our focus back to India, where German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul arrived in Bengaluru this morning to commence a two-day official visit to India, emphasizing the need for the growing strategic importance of the Indo-German relations. Now, the visit, scheduled from the 2nd to the 3rd September, was announced by India's Ministry of External Affairs, highlighting the strong and evolving ties between the two great democracies. Now, this also very interestingly marks Minister Wadephul's first visit to India in his current capacity. Describing India as a quote-unquote key partner in the Indo-Pacific, Wadephul noted the depth and breadth of bilateral cooperation, also citing close political, economic and cultural ties with significant potential for expansion in security cooperation, technology, innovation, and even areas like skilled worker recruitment. According to the United Nations Humanitarian Agency, helicopter teams are searching remote villages in Afghanistan for survivors of a magnitude 6 earthquake that struck on Sunday and in fact has left more than 800 people dead. That's the latest death toll we are picking up from the earthquake-struck country. Now, this quake struck the mountainous Kunar province on Sunday, and with roads blocked by debris, rescue operations need to be carried out by air. The death toll, we are getting to learn, could very well rise significantly, as many are still feared to be trapped under the rubble and the debris, while officials report entire villages being wiped out or destroyed altogether. Meanwhile, India has sent food and relief material, including tents. Neighbors China has also pledged support. We get you more.
The earthquake magnitude 6 happened at around midnight Sunday, which jolted eastern provinces of Afghanistan, including Nangarhar and Kunar. In particular, the damages were a lot more in Kunar provinces, jolting and shaking houses in 6 districts, and 1 district was affected in Nangarhar province. Children and women are among these casualties. They need the help, especially with the medicine, with food, with shelter. I, on behalf of Afghan people, do thank India for its effort to try to reach the Afghan people for help. Actually, India's Foreign Minister, Jaishankar, has extended its condolence and the condolence of the Indian people to Afghanistan and Afghan interim government for help and also its condolence. He has promised Afghan people, especially those affected, with emergency aid, including tents, 1,000 tents, 15 tons of food, and additional medical support.
On to the latest in the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflicts. Now, viewers, more explosions were seen in Gaza in the early hours of Tuesday. This after Israel launched strikes across the Gaza Strip on Monday, killing at least 31 people. Now, the strikes come as the Israeli military pressed ahead with a major offensive in the territory's largest city, according to the Palestinian health officials. Airstrikes and artillery shelling have echoed through Gaza City since Israel declared it a combat zone last week. Meanwhile, Israel says it's only targeting militants and blames Hamas, in fact, for the civilian casualties, because it says the militant group, now largely reduced to a guerrilla organization, operates only and only in densely populated areas. Meanwhile, starving Palestinians attempted on Monday to secure meager portions of food at a soup kitchen in Khan Yunis while they clutched empty pots, as you see on your screens right now. Now, the famine report in August by the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification said nearly 500,000 people, that's about 1/4 of Gaza's population, in fact, face catastrophic hunger, with many also at the risk of dying from malnutrition-related causes. Palestinians, on their part, many displaced by war multiple times over now, face twin threats of combat and hunger. Here's more.
احنا اليوم بنعيش وضع صعب، لا في أكل ولا في شرب، رغم المساعدات اللي بتيجي. مساعدات بتيجي من الطيران، لكن ما بنستفادش منها. بتيجي من المعابر، ما بنستفادش منها. بيسيبوها اليهود لمين؟
Stay with the region, viewers, where a flotilla headed to Gaza departed Barcelona for the second time after being forced back to the port after a storm hit parts of Spain overnight. A day prior, that's on Monday. Now, the global Sumit flotilla consists of around 20 boats with participants from 44 countries. This flotilla is the largest attempt yet to break the Israeli blockade of the Palestinian territory by sea. Now, it also comes as Israel has stepped up its offensive in Gaza, virtually limiting deliveries of food and even basic supplies in the north of the Palestinian territory. Meanwhile, over in the U.S., dozens of protesters took to the streets in cities from coast to coast, or the west coast to the east coast, on Labor Day to criticize President Donald Trump and demand a living wage for workers. Chants of Trump must go now echoed in the streets outside the president's former home in New York City, while protesters gathered outside a different Trump tower in Chicago, yelling "No National Guard" and "Lock him up." At one point, a woman got out of a vehicle with Iowa plates in Chicago to shout "Long live Donald Trump" over and over again, resulting in a brief confrontation as the protesters, in fact, responded with shouts of their own to drown her out until she left a few minutes later. That did not, in fact, deter these protesters. Large crowds, meanwhile, also gathered in capital D.C. and San Francisco. Over in Brazil, across the southern border, supporters of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro and his sons on Monday gathered for a vigil ahead of his trial next to the condominium where he's under house arrest currently. Bolsonaro's son, Jair Renan, and Carlos greeted the group, thanking them for their support in a crucial time for their father. Now, viewers, the verdict and the sentencing phase in the coup trial of the former Brazilian president, in fact, begin on Tuesday. That's today at the Supreme Court in capital Brasilia. The embattled leader faces a possible conviction of more than 30 years or 3 decades in prison for his alleged attempt to stay in power despite losing his re-election bid back in 2022. Meanwhile, a 5-justice panel will also have until September the 12th to deliver their decision. We also caught with O Globo's reporter Felipe Berini to understand exactly what's and how much is at stake in Brazil. Listen in.
What's the importance, the sheer importance of this trial, and how does this trial affect the public's trust in Brazil's judiciary?
Actually, you mentioned this is perhaps one of the most expected events in 2025. There is a major investigation, an open investigation, a lot of evidence, a lot of testimonies. It's about one of the most dangerous and most dangerous and more severe moments against our democracy since our democratization, since the end of the dictatorship. So there is a massive interest about this trial, since because Bolsonaro is a leader of a political movement that strikes in front, right, the battles against Workers' Party, Lula's party, left, and so there is the recent polls that show that there is support for the process, the investigation, and the trial. Most analysts, they using sources inside the Supreme Court, they say he will probably be convicted, but we don't know the details of the conviction.
We stay with the region where Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has said that he would declare a republic in arms. Now this if the U.S. attacks Venezuela. His comments at a news conference followed the U.S. boosting its maritime force in the Caribbean to combat drug cartels. America has not indicated any planned land incursion yet, but Venezuela has said it's deploying troops along its coast and border with Colombia. Now, Maduro, in fact, also called the U.S. deployment an extravagant, unjustifiable, immoral, and absolutely criminal bloody threat. Listen in.
Esta rueda de prensa es muy importante porque Venezuela está enfrentando la más grande amenaza que se haya visto en nuestro continente en los últimos 100 años. 8 barcos militares con 1.200 misiles y un submarino nuclear apuntan a Venezuela.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is heading to Beijing by train on Tuesday to attend a military parade with his Chinese and Russian counterparts, North Korea's state media has reported. Now, the event could demonstrate their potential three-way unity against Washington, Donald Trump, and the United States. Kim and Russian President Vladimir Putin are among, in fact, the 26 world leaders who will join Chinese President Xi Jinping to watch Wednesday's massive military parade in Beijing that commemorates the 80th anniversary of its end of World War II and China's fight against Japan's wartime aggressions. Now, while the event would mark Kim's first attendance of a major multilateral event during his 14-year rule, it will also be the first time for Kim, Xi and Putin, all key challengers of the U.S., to gather at the same venue. Now, none of the leaders have confirmed a private trilateral meeting as of now. Dozens of voters in Guyana stood in line by dawn on Monday to participate in what many say is the South American country's most consequential election in decades. Now, given whichever party wins the overseas $10 billion in annual revenue from offshore oil and gas production. In recent years, for perspectives, the country has transformed from a country traditionally dependent on gold, sugar, rice, bauxite and timber to one reaping the windfall of nearly 900,000 barrels of oil produced every day. Over in Thailand, viewers, the opposition has amped up pressure and has pledged to, in fact, push for snap elections following the unceremonious ouster of Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra. They've intensified the country's political turmoil. Thailand's constitutional court, meanwhile, on Friday dismissed the Prime Minister Shinawatra, ruling that she violated ethics rules in a phone call with a high-ranking Cambodian official, which happens, in fact, to be the ex-Cambodian Prime Minister. Now, in a 6-3 vote, the judges found that Shinawatra's conduct in a June 15 call with Cambodia's former leader, Hun Sen, compromised national interests. Thai news outlet Machichon's online's Superwith Jiang Rung Sen unpacks what's at the very center of this controversy that has snowballed into a full-blown constitutional crisis in Thailand.
There's a political turmoil. The Prime Minister has been ousted. Where does Thailand's democracy stand right now, and where does it go from here? Supabit.
Okay, the start of the conflict was that there was a fighting in along the borders of Thailand. I think in around 3 or 4 places around the border, and then both sides claimed that each other side attacked first. But I think Thailand do still have like quite evidence that Cambodia hit first. But then Patron Tan Shinawat, the Shinawat family quite close to Hun Sen's family. So what she was trying to do was that she tried to use her close relationship with Hun Sen to try to calm the tension down. So I think if she were to call Hun Sen or negotiate with him openly, I think the result might be a bit more less severe. But she had like a private telephone call which Hun Sen leaked. First of all, the telephone call released, I think it's not illegal, but it's against the norm. So you shouldn't be doing that. But what Patong Chan Shinawat, what she was saying in the phone call, she called a military commander who proceed along the border of Thailand and Cambodia. She called him, he's not from our side. He's not from our side, don't listen to him.
All right, so the Prime Minister of Thailand, in a private phone call,
criticized
with the ex-Prime Minister of Cambodia, who's at the center of this controversy, is criticizing her own military general, saying do not listen to him, do not listen to whatever he says.
He's not on our side.
He's not on our side.
Yeah, so, and she told Hun Sen, if you need anything, please tell me.
And all of this, the controversy broke out because this happened in isolation, away from the public.
Yeah, so that's fishy. That is the suspicious thing about that.
Iraq's Prime Minister presided over the official reopening of the historic Al-Nouri Grand Mosque and its leaning minaret in the heart of Mosul's old city on Monday. Now, it's 8 years after the mosque was destroyed by Islamic State militants. Viewers, for some 850 years, the leaning minaret of the mosque stood as an iconic landmark. But in 2014, ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi declared the so-called caliphate there by delivering a Friday sermon and leading prayers. The terrorist group later destroyed the mosque by detonating explosives inside the structural dome as it faced defeat in battle with Iraqi military forces for control of the city in 2017. Well, it's time we step into a short break. News continues on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching the World Report on NDTV. We shift our focus to the business, to the world of business, where Nestle investors were pitched back into choppy waters on Tuesday. Now, this after the Swiss food giant changed its CEO for the second time in less than a year. It ousted boss Laurent Frexy over an affair he had with a subordinate. The company's share as well were indicated 1.9% lower in pre-market activity in Zurich, following Frexy's sudden dismissal on Monday following a board meeting to discuss, in fact, the findings of an investigation into this alleged relationship. And there's big news in the world of sports. India and Nigeria have officially thrown in their hats in the ring to host the 2030 Commonwealth Games. And it's not just any edition, viewers. This one marks the 100th anniversary of the Games, making it a major milestone in global sports history. Now, the Commonwealth Games Federation, or the Commonwealth Sports Federation, announced that both the countries had submitted their formal proposals right on time by the 31st of August deadline, that is. Now, these bids follow a wave of interest from countries around the world, all eager to be a part of the Games' next chapter. An expert evaluation commission will now review the bids and meet with both countries in London later this month. The final decision will be made in November at the Commonwealth Sports General Assembly in Scotland's Glasgow. Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt walked the red carpet in Venice Monday evening to the premiere of The Smashing Machine, which in fact is in competition for the top prize, the Golden Lion, that is, at this year's Venice International Film Festival. Johnson transforms into MMA fighter Mark Kerr for Benny Safdie's biopic, wearing facial prosthetics and a wig. Emily Blunt co-stars as the famous mixed martial arts fighter's wife, Dawn. The two stars previously shared the screen in Jungle Cruise back in 2021. That's all we have for you this Tuesday on the World Report. Take care and have a wonderful day.